Okay, it's just afternoon, so we'll go ahead and get started. We have a couple of students who are having some connection issues maybe, but that's okay. They can just jump in the fold whenever they get here. So my name is Dr. Robin Taylor, and I am at the Hall School of Journalism and Communication at Troy University. And I'm also a student advisor for our student publications. And one of those is the Tripolitan, which brings us to what we're doing today through some neat partnerships with the African Real Estate blog and also the English, which is at the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia. Our students have been working together and sharing stories across continents. So we wanted to get them together for the first time today, and everyone's going to be able to, from those different areas, going to be able to talk about student life in the pandemic, what that's felt like, what that's meant, and then the idea of global thinking and understanding issues on a global scale, which is something they've been working on. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We'll start with the students of Troy and then move to Slovenia, and then our students that are with us from Kenya. And then I will also be monitoring the chat in YouTube. So if you guys have any questions for them or any comments that you want to share, you can post them if you're watching on YouTube. So let's go ahead and get started. Brady, you want to start, and then you guys can just work around introductions?
Yeah, I think just first off, I think this experience is just really cool because we're coming out of a year where we've not been able to connect with others, especially, with the pandemic and whatnot, and even, just oceans that separate us and like different countries and that kind of stuff. So this is a really cool opportunity. But my name is Brady Talbert. I go to Troy University in Troy, Alabama. I'm a senior, so I'm on my way out the door in a few short days, so I'm trying to take it all in. But I am a broadcast journalism major and a public relations minor. And with that, I am the student news director at Troy Trojan Vision News, which is our on-campus television station, as well as a staff writer for the Tripolitan. So I'm really passionate about journalism and really passionate about my major. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Hey guys, my name is Hannah Cooper. I am a senior broadcast journalism major, sports management minor. And I'm a senior, like Brady, getting ready to walk out here shortly. But yeah, so I am the editor-in-chief of Troy's student newspaper, the Tripolitan. And then I also work over in our athletic communications department. And so I do a lot of journalism work over there as well, because I cover our softball and cross country team there. And so, yeah, super excited today, super excited to re-see some old faces, because we've kind of had some Zooms in the past, but then to hop on in with some new friends as well.
Yeah, hi. My name is Ariela Herceg. I'm from Slovenia. I go to Faculty of Arts, University of Ljubljana, which is our capital city. And I study English and general linguistics, but I did my bachelor's degree in English and comparative literature. I am the poetry editor and proofreader in chief for Englist, which is our English students' newspaper. And I'm very happy to be here and happy to have this collaboration with Tripolitan. That it has really been a great experience, I have to say.
Hi, so I'm Nika. I'm also from Slovenia, the same university, also Faculty of Arts, University of Ljubljana. I'm a first year, so distance learning is so far the only experience of college I've had, or almost the only one. And I'm also here as a member of the debate team, and this feels awesome. A little bit surreal, connecting the world like that, but I'm looking forward to it.
Victor?
Okay, thank you. I'm Victor Kiplagat from Kenya. I study at St. Paul's University. I major in mass communication and a minor in public relations. I also love real estate, telling real estate stories in ways that change the lives of people. I'm also a photographer. I also I'm an upcoming sports journalist and also love filmmaking. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lensa Lois. I'm from Kenya, a university called Moi University. I'm a journalism student. I'm in third year. I'm a senior too. Yeah, so I'm also a news anchor at our local community radio station. That's all.
Well, it's very exciting to have all of you here. So what I want to do is give you a prompt question, and then you guys can take it away and just discuss. So this has been a very different school year for you. And like some of you mentioned, this is the only college experience you've had so far with distance education. What is, I'm interested, and I think everybody will be interested to hear the different experiences of what school has been like for you this year.
Well, in terms of Troy, it's been kind of a mix of a lot of different things. When the pandemic first started, I believe that was last March, we converted to an all online format. So that summer I was taking classes completely online from my home. In terms of student media, throughout that time, I think it's really cool how our journalism majors continue to put out content and continue to keep students informed. So I know like the Trop was putting out stuff, and I know there was digital content online, and then also Treasure Vision, like we did some at-home newscasts, which was really cool, like anchoring literally in my bedroom, which is a challenge and interesting and not completely the same as you can imagine, but it was cool that, you know, we were kind of converting to an online and remote format like we see on national and international news. I'll say like we returned back in the fall. It's very different. It still is very different. Like obviously wearing masks and different protocol in place. There's something called pod classes. So classes are smaller and they might interchange when they're actually in person and online. And it still looks very different. I think we're slowly transitioning back to what feels more familiar. But I mean, that's how it's been here. How is everyone else?
Well, I'm currently in my last year of master's studies, so my 5th year at university, and it's been so different than what I was used to for, you know, basically 4 years before that. And I really just am feeling so bad for everybody who is a freshman this year, because they haven't had the chance in Slovenia to really live that student life that everybody keeps talking about, you know, are the best years of their lives. And in Slovenia, actually, we start our academic year at 1st of October, and then we only had 2 weeks of classes live with our masks on. Actually, we had kind of a hybrid system going on, so you could go either into the lecture room, or you could stay home and, you know, do that via Zoom. But then after 2 weeks, we went into complete lockdown, and we haven't been back to uni since. And that has been extremely difficult. And there's been a lot. There was actually a study that came out last week by our national health center of Slovenia, and it said that every 4th student, you know, was feeling suicidal, which means that there is a real decline in mental health. And I feel like that's a point in this remote studying that we don't really talk about enough. We talk a lot about quality of the study, but not a lot about what this has been like for our mental health.
Yeah, if I can add on to that. I personally experienced like those first 2 weeks. They were a hybrid system, right? So we had some classes over Zoom, we had some classes in person. So I saw, I think, like a quarter maybe of my classmates in person, but with masks on, and we didn't really have the opportunity to connect and to hang out after classes as well. So yeah, the transition then has been a little bit difficult, especially when beginning college, because that meant that the professors were adapting, right? So they needed to like cooperate among themselves and agree on what channels of communication they were going to use, so that everybody kind of did the same thing. And but also social networking, like it's thankfully we have some programs and some systems in place so that we had contact with older students as well, so we could ask people. But amongst ourselves, we really tried. We have some like events. We have drinking tea with sociology, because I'm a double subject student, right? With the English language and with sociology, we drink tea on Sundays in the evening together, and we've tried watching movies together, but it's different, right? We haven't really made friends, more acquaintances, and that I think has really impacted the experience.
Well, studying online has really been challenging in a way of trying to get the concentration perspective, and also trying to change ways and means of doing things from the social and the conversational part of being in a class setup and discussing with fellow students, to being in a place whereby you just secluded in that you're online and studying using apps like Google Meet, communicating with your lecturers in WhatsApp, using Gmail for official communication, especially in campus. So I believe this studying online has, in a way, like our colleague mentioned earlier, social networking with other fellow students and fellow lecturers, but also trying to understand what's also, because I believe in every challenge, there must be a silver lining. So the silver lining is, how have we been able to take advantage of technology? In as much as COVID has pushed us to the very end, meaning that we have to use technology to better our studies, to better our research, better our communication, and also to better our way of living. Because at the end of the day, when you are given lemons, you have to make lemonade.
Okay, so for me, it's different. I'm in a public university, which is a government institution. So we don't have things like online classes or anything. So I can say since this pandemic came, I haven't finished even one semester. I've been in third year, first semester since 2019 up to now, because my institution, it's a government institution. So for them to roll out things like online classes and stuff, it's a bit difficult. So example of this year, when this year around January, we were back to classes, the physical classes, but our country is now experiencing the third wave of this pandemic. So a week to our exams, we were told there's no physical meetings, and that's how we stopped. And that's how I didn't do exams. And right now I'm like on a holiday, because us, when they say that there's no physical learning, we don't do the online thing. So it's a bit difficult.
I think to kind of hop off of something that Victor said that I think is really like something that I've noticed a lot, is that like there really is a silver lining in everything. And so like on one end, I think Brady kind of can attest that some of your favorite parts of being, in the journalism world is being at the scene and being there when things are happening and being able to have that firsthand experience. And COVID's kind of limited that in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of different events that are happening on Zoom or not happening at all. And we still had to cover things during the pandemic that were happening, but we couldn't be there. And so I know both from like my journalism size in terms of news, but then also from my athletic stuff that I do, like not being able to be there took away one of my favorite parts of my job, which is being able to be there and to be on the scene and to be involved. But then, on that, there's always a silver lining. And so like when I graduate in May, in June, I'm starting my master's program, and my master's program is all online. And that was always going to be a thing. Like that's not a COVID thing, is my master's program was going to be online. And so with us kind of transitioning online towards the end of my undergrad, which is something I didn't expect to happen, and something that took me by surprise and took a lot of adjustment, but it gave me time to adjust before I was entering a program that was going to be all online anyway. And so like it's kind of a double-edged sword in a sense that, it took away some of my favorite parts of my job, and that's been super hard. But then also it's prepared me really well for the next chapter of my life that was already going to be all online, regardless of the pandemic or not.
You're on mute, Robin.
I'm working on it. There we go. The Zoom life, right? So I'm interested, and I think other people would be interested too, for you to talk a little bit about maybe, you said it was kind of a double-edged sword, and Victor talked a little bit about technology. Without technology, we wouldn't be meeting like this today. And I don't even know if without the pandemic that we would have even have thought to be doing this right now. I think that we think more with the ease of online communication. So with that in mind, we do have another student who has joined us. And I wanted to give her an opportunity to go ahead and introduce herself. Joangeline, is that right? I may be mispronouncing it, but you can
Yes,
correct.
that's Joangeline Kataraya from Dar es Salaam.
Yeah.
Joangeline, can you hear us?
I know she was having some difficulties logging on. Our students that were joining us from Tanzania may be having some connection issues, and that's okay. Whenever they're able to join and chat, they can.
I'm told it's been raining heavily in Dar es Salaam, and because of that, they lost power. So Joangeline doesn't have power as we speak, and that could be one of the reasons.
Okay, so is that Joangeline?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Would you tell everybody a little bit about where you're from and what you're studying, and what kind of journalism that you're interested in?
My name's Joangeline Kataraya, and I'm pursuing Bachelor of Arts in Public Relations and Advertising. Well, I heard other students talking about online studies, but just like Miss Lancer, we did not have online studies. Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge because, well, the semesters had to end sooner. Yeah, and what kind of journalism I would like to do, right? Mm-hmm. Well, writing and journalism.
Writing, okay. All right, you guys, take it away with this other thought of how, even though we are a little more disconnected when it comes to seeing each other physically, maybe something good has come out of that with being able to think more globally and be more globally aware. Just along those lines, why don't you guys share some of your thoughts?
Like, how do we feel about it? Is that a question? Well, just like I said, it's a bit of a challenge. With the online networking, most of African countries, it's not very efficient, but in some way it has been a good thing on a major sense of networking with all students from other parts of the world. Yeah, and gaining more experience in different sectors.
Also, I feel like it didn't just allow us, so this our new way of communication, so via Zoom or Skype or other online meeting services, it didn't just allow us to connect professionally or via our universities, but also to maybe connect personally more to people. I feel like before that we used to text each other more often than actually maybe call or video call each other, because I know that people in the US are crazy about FaceTiming, but we don't do that in Slovenia. We either call each other or we just text. That's it. So this has really been different. Like, I've been meeting my friends for like weekly Skype sessions and just having a coffee and a chat. Or for example, I was very active at the poetry community on Instagram, and I met some really amazing people from all around the world. And we started having these Zoom writing sessions, which, you know, we probably wouldn't have thought of before this pandemic. So this has really been a great experience to come out of all of this. But I still feel like it might have taken away from the actual physical experience of connecting with people in real life. Or at least that's how it has felt for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it really kind of makes you realize that you need to put a lot of effort into connecting with people, that you need to that relationships take time and take work. And especially now when you don't just go grab a coffee afterwards and it feels natural and you don't have to organize things beforehand, because now you kind of have to plan for everything. But I also personally think that it has pushed me to be more active in extracurricular activities. Because that is like the only connection to hobbies that I currently have at the university. And I think I stayed more in touch with my friends from high school than I would have otherwise. And I've noticed that the organization part of it is kind of easier now, because we have like a debate club at my previous high school. So organizing that has been much easier, because we're not limited by transport and the hours at which train leaves and buses leave, and everybody has to go, and kind of agreeing on a certain time was very difficult before. And now it just, yeah, should we meet at 8? Yeah, 8 sounds fine. I don't have a social life anyway, so that's the narrative now.
I think the online way of doing things like studying or research or even communication has made people to really value to really the pre-COVID way of studying or meeting up with lecturers or even calling people and meeting face to face. But looking at it differently on the other side of the coin, maybe it's a way of revolutionizing things in terms of internet. You look at internet, you look at speed. You look at internet, you look at connectivity. You look at internet, you think of meeting with people who are miles and miles away from your current location. Like a good example is what we're having here. So again, what I'm really putting across is that I think the best thing about anything that happens across the internet is that you're able to make a lot of impossibilities possible in a way that even the face-to-face a conversation would not. Like if it is transforming files or books or research or even communicating with people who are miles and miles away from you, and also making sure that you can share research and you can make friendship that could last ages if at all you're interested in making sure that the friendship bears the fruit that you want at the end of the day.
I know for me, I can't remember the exact first time I heard the word Zoom, but I know I didn't know what it was. Did not know what Zoom was, did not know about Microsoft Teams, whatever the other ones are. Like I feel like I've used them all, but I did not know what any of them were. So for sure, like that's been a positive, is like seeing these pieces of software that we can use to connect like we are right now. Like this is something I would have never thought of to do. Because I mean, I knew about FaceTime, but I didn't know about that you could host a meeting with all these people. But one thing that I found really interesting is this semester I had the pleasure of interning with a national news organization, NBC News, which is in New York, but they cover stories across the country and around the globe. It's not just New York based, they're covering stories everywhere. And I think over this semester, my internship ended Monday, which it might be Monday where y'all are, it might be another day, my internship ended Monday. it's Wednesday here. So it's been 2 days and I'm no longer an intern. But what I've learned this semester, one of the big takeaways is in the journalism industry, it's not an industry of it's an industry of teamwork. You can't cover global news or even news just across a state or a country without teamwork, really. It takes a crew of people to put it together. And I think that's something I learned. I mean, I did this internship completely like in this room, completely remote, like this, talking over webcams and video calls and that kind of stuff. But like we've been covering, I'm in Alabama, but we covered Prince Philip passing away, which is in the UK. We covered protests that are happening in Myanmar, that have ongoing protests in Myanmar. And, I'm still here in Alabama, but we're covering those things through a network of people who are connected through software like this. And I don't know, it's just been really cool, like in the grand scheme of things, to learn that, if we're going to cover global news, we have to have people in a lot of different countries doing that, or it's not going to be effective. So I don't know, it was just really interesting. And I don't know, it applies perfectly to our industry.
Okay, honestly, to me as a student in Kenya, I do feel left out because most of the Kenyan university students are enrolled in public university that can't afford online classes. So to us, we are like under lockdown. There is no classes, there's nothing about education going on. So maybe it's you doing your articles, your blogs or something, but when it comes to classes, it stopped the moment this pandemic came. So as the world is going on, we do feel left out because our lecturers cannot move to the other step of internet, technology, and everything and stuff. So we just feel left out.
I think something that's been super interesting to me that's been kind of happening is going through the job process in the middle of, not being able to see people, and so like I said, I work over in athletics as well. And I have both interviewed people on Zoom and been on a Zoom interview with somebody that's office is 4 doors down from me. And so it's like, I think it really has just opened up to how valuable communication is, but then also how like you're able to keep a track record through communication and how important that is. And so like, when you have conversations with people in the journalism world that you have them face to face, if you don't have any record of that happening, things go haywire and it can be a mess. But like, because we've had to use technology more, I think you're better able to kind of keep a track record of what's happening. And so I had a Zoom interview with my boss's boss, who was 4 doors down from me, which was just kind of crazy to me. But it's like, actually, it makes a lot of sense because, as an internal candidate applying for something, that Zoom gave them track record of the fact that I did interview, and so it's just been really interesting to me to see how we can use different forms of communication to validate what's happening and to validate our sources.
It's interesting to hear you all talk about your different experiences. So, and some of them are very different. Like Ms. Lenzo, you were talking about feeling left out. Well, we're still seeing each other on a daily basis. Hannah is just a couple of offices over from where I am right now. Can you guys talk a little bit about, talk a little bit about why you think it's important or not important. I don't want to make an assumption for you to understand what it's like for other people and to think about things on a global level instead of just on a really focused at the local level. Is there any benefit to thinking globally?
Well, if I may start, I'm very happy that Lois pointed that out because it really makes me realize that we're very happy to have quality public education because everything here is basically public education. Private schools they exist in Slovenia, but the majority of students go to public education institutions and they are top quality.
They're free.
So,
and
they're free, not to brag, but no, it really makes you grateful for the opportunity because as much of a hassle as the transition has been from like class in person to online class, it it has happened and it functions well now. So I still feel like I'm getting, let's say, 80% of the knowledge I would have been getting in person probably, but that's like counting in the lesson motivation and everything like that. So yeah, I think it's necessary that I just keep that in mind constantly, that I am thankful for having public education, and that we in Slovenia need to really protect it, because it is something to be protected.
Yeah, and also I just kind of wanted to point that out, that there is such a disparity. For example, we have been so preoccupied with our own experiences that we haven't really thought about how other people are managing their education at the moment. So this is also why I think that this roundtable is extremely, extremely needed. And as Louise pointed out, they're left out. Some of them, so, for example, some students across the world don't have access to internet connection. Joangeline is currently suffering from a power outage, and yet she's still here and trying, and kind of just trying to point out that, hey, we're here and maybe we've been left behind a little bit. And I feel like that is a disparity that we always have to keep in mind. But I maybe also wanted to point out, and not to lessen anyone's bad experience with learning, and especially online education at this point, but I feel like in Slovenia, lots of students also don't have appropriate either environment to study in. That means that they're stuck at home because our student dorms are closed. We can't be there. So they're stuck at home with their families. Everybody is working from home and studying from home. They might not have enough money to have more than one laptop or even one laptop. They might have really just a ruckus going on behind them while they're trying to learn. And this is also something that I think has not been talked about enough. And it also applies to a lot of Slovenian students who are living, let's say, at least partially in poverty. And it does deserve more attention than it has gotten.
I think that the different global challenges that we are facing calls for global collaboration in terms of having meetings together, in terms of linking up opportunities for meetings like these, opportunities for internships, opportunities for jobs, opportunities for online writing, opportunities for engaging in a way that, you know, when people communicate, that also in a way relieves stress. In a way, when people communicate, they also exchange ideas. And when ideas are exchanged, from one idea, a job opportunity can be birthed. And from another idea, people can create partnerships that, for example, when I have an idea here and I sell it to Ariela, when she expands it in her campus, you see that mindset of global collaboration means that distance is not a hindrance. Another thing about global collaboration is that we'll be able to overcome every challenge that distance has, overcome every challenge that things like race, as we have seen in the United States, have about George Floyd, differences in religion, because again, global collaboration only cuts across one line. How can we help each other? And when we find out the best way to help each other is listen to one another and listen to one another and talk to each other, not one another, so that we're able to find solutions at a more faster rate. And also looking at a point whereby if we're able to create solutions at a faster rate, it means that we can be able to have this global village, not really a village, but a global family, because village is much an overused word, but global and techno village, that people can be able to see things from a solution perspective, not a problem perspective.
When I think of global thinking, something that my brain immediately goes to is, the basis of journalism. which is story can be on engineering, story can be on chemistry, story can be on whatever. It doesn't matter what it's on. At the end of the day, every story is about humans. It's about people. Every story is a people story. So I think it's really interesting to kind of see that play out. You know, I'm jotting down stuff. That's how my mind works. That's just how I process things. But, you know, as y'all were talking, I immediately was thinking of when quarantine started, or closer to the start of quarantine, people singing from their balconies in Italy, because, you know, and just wanting to connect with other people and however they could. And that story went beyond Italy. I mean, it was a national, international story. I mean, I heard about it and I'm in Alabama, and that really got at people's hearts because everyone could relate to that regardless of what country they're from, what race they are, what their religion is, because like that is a story about people. And at the end of the day, I think that's what it's about ultimately. So I don't know, it's really cool to hear from you people about your experiences and our differences, but also our similarities.
Okay, so I can say that this has been the new normal and it will be the new normal because nobody knows when this pandemic is going to end. And we as journalists, we should embrace it. Because personally, I can say my life out of class is still moving on. I'm still meeting with friends over the internet. We Google Classroom Meet and everything. But since not all of us can be engaged together as a class, we can't hold like a lecture and go on with our learning. But honestly, I can say that the pandemic has affected everyone, and embracing it is the only method that we're going to make through. If other places are continuing with their education, I know even us in Kenya we will soon continue when everybody will be ready to move on. So as journalists, we should be the top lines when trying to tell people that here is the pandemic, and for us to continue, we're going to embrace the internet more than we used to embrace the traditional forms of media. Yeah.
I think us thinking globally is necessary for making sure that we don't make others feel left out. I think we get really caught up in seeing the way our world is because like mine and Brady's normal right now looks really similar, you know? And so it's like, I am surrounded by people that their normal all looks the same way my normal looks for the most part. And so it's allowing myself to only think about the fact that the people around me's normal all looks the same is why you start to like, you fail to realize that other people's normals aren't the same. You know, people that are a little bit farther out of where you are, they look totally different. And so when we don't think on a global perspective, it kind of lends ourselves to forgetting what other people's realities look like and forgetting about the fact that they don't have the same reality as us, which is why we have people that start to feel left out and start to kind of feel like they're falling behind. It's because I get so caught up and we get so caught up in just seeing that my reality looks the same as Brady's reality because we're in the same city. And so that means like we're all equal and together. But realistically, like you got to think outside of just your city or just your county or just your state because things are so different in other parts of the world. And when you don't think about that, we have the tendency to allow others to feel left out.
Michelle had a question to ask, and I failed to introduce him and let him introduce himself at the beginning of this. So I hope that he will take an opportunity to do that. But as far as Troy's partnership with the student journalists in Africa, it was facilitated through the mentorship program that the African Real Estate blog and Michelle are working on. So if you would introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Oh, thanks, Robin. Today was the day for the students, so that's why I thought, we'd give them time to do the introduction. But my name is Michelle Ondieki. I'm in California, Los Angeles, California. I'm the founder of the Real Estate blog post and the mentorship program. But my question to you guys is, because as a former journalist, I know that journalism moves the world. Now the world is shrinking and shrinking, and communities are, getting closer and closer. How, as upcoming journalists, do you think you can collaborate to make that happen even faster and more in a more forward looking way, in a more progressive way, in the sense of development, not political.
I know for me, like just having this opportunity to listen to everyone speak has been really, really cool. But I'm thinking of like, you know, these are journalists across the country, or they're about to be journalists if they're about to graduate, whatever that might be. Keeping connected would be really cool. I would love to follow everyone on whatever social media you're on and that kind of stuff, because you know there might be a story in a year or two or whatever down the line where I can't be in Africa, but I can talk to a student or a journalist in Africa that I connected with through this or Slovenia or whatever it may be. But you know, I think just staying connected, and you know, I mean, that was the butt of your question. At the core of it was, you know, the internet and all of this is allowing us to connect. So really, it's a matter of using it properly to stay connected. And I don't know. That's what I was thinking of this whole time. I was like, I want to keep up with these people because you know I want to hear about their lives more, and you know, allow them to help me and help me help them if they have stories that they need help with. But yeah.
I think kind of to piggyback off of what Brady said a little bit, I think it starts with admitting the fact that we can't do it all ourselves. And the sooner you're willing to admit the fact that you need other people's help is the sooner that that development's able to happen, and the sooner that we're able to get things covered faster, you know? And so I think it really just starts with being willing to admit, like, I'm not going to be able to be everywhere, and I'm not going to be able to, you know, get all the perspective that I need for a story by myself. And so the quicker that we're able to realize that, like Brady said earlier, like journalism is about teamwork, is the quicker that you're able to use the connections that you do have to formulate, you know, development and better stories and a more global perspective in general.
That was a good question earlier by Michelle, and I think the best way that we can actualize and make collaboration realistic is through platforms like these, whereby we have meetings, whereby we share ideas, and also whereby we are able to concentrate on understanding the strength and the great strength of individuals. And even when you look at weaknesses, you're able to strength to like tweak or help people so that you're able to find the strength in terms of development. Let me give an example. Like when for example you find that it's a group of writers who write about development, who write about real estate, or who write about sports. When they meet together, maybe online or even physically, when they meet occasionally, they exchange ideas on how to write. They exchange ideas on how to be able to fund ideas, just from an idea perspective to actualizing it. Like when they meet, when they talk, when they invite specialists and experts in their different, when they invite experts into those areas which they are specifically fit in, that is a very good way of collaboration and making journalism grow. But one more thing that is very, very important that I would like to put across, two of the best ways that I think collaboration is going to help out people, and especially journalists, is when they share stories of life-changing stories. Because when stories are shared, it means that people are going to be inspired, and from one story will back another story, and that is how we will have a thread story of how things are changing in the society. The second thing is when people practice their art, practice their skill, because again, when you practice what you do, it becomes in a way perfection in terms of what you're trying to achieve in one way or another. Because again, collaboration cannot be just in terms of few individuals. Collaboration, when you perfect it with practice, in a way, it brings about a huge achievement investment, so to speak.
Can I just say, Victor, I love your thoughts, and you express them so well, and you sound very emotional when you say them and honest, and it's really nice to hear you speak, I have to say. But also I wanted to kind of piggyback off of that when you said practice, and that is very important, but also I feel not just practice but also a respectful relationship that doesn't necessarily always develop from just meeting somebody for the first time. I hope it does, but people are different, and also having not just respect but tolerance for other people, and trying to, and because I'm a linguistics major, trying to kind of connect that to language that we write in. It's very, very important for the language in any journal, in any article, to be open, to be respectful, to be tolerant. And I feel like it should be a mirror of the person who writes the article. And so I feel like technology can also help maybe with developing a language that is true to our different nationalities, our different ethnicities, different religions, and language that says, we are different, but in a sense, we're all the same, right? For example, we come from 3 different continents, but we are all interested in the same areas. We share the same ideas, which I feel is very, very important in global collaboration, and also in just leading healthy relationships with other people.
Yeah, I would agree. I think globalization has really kind of showcased that very clearly, that just once we don't have the public life, the real public life anymore, everything on the internet kind of, I feel, becomes more real, right, because of it. So everything feels closer now. When I watch the news, they feel closer. Every catastrophe around the world feels closer as well, but so do the happy stories. So as for the question about what the journalism can do, I think that, okay, that's very Slovenia-centric, but currently Slovenian journalism is kind of losing its independency in some way, because we have a little bit of a problematic government currently, a little bit far right-leaning, and they're doing their best. So I think that journalists currently are one of the most important professions that are keeping this country together and keeping it informed, and making sure that we aren't misinformed, that we care about the issues that we should care about. So journalists currently working in Slovenia are absolutely one of my biggest heroes right now. And I also agree with what Brady said. I think that just connecting with people personally is also something that journalism can do more of, because as far as I know, current system is in Slovenia, for example, we have this agency SDA that provides the information from abroad, right, for every other news article. And I feel that sometimes that means that all of Slovenian television or media houses have basically the same story, right? And that's not as personal, and that's not as in-depth as it could have been if journalists will actually, as they used to, like, go live abroad and make contact from there, or even, like as Brady suggested, have contacts across the world that would kind of tell them face-to-face or first-hand stories and perspectives of what is going on, because I feel that that is kind of being left behind now, because everything feels at hand, right? But you need to ask yourself the question, what kind of information feels at hand? And is that all of the information that you are able to get from a certain story, right?
One of the things that Ariel, you and Victor touched on was that there are things about us that are very different, and there are things that are about us that are very similar. like your love for journalism and the search for truth and wanting to learn more from other people. If you had this opportunity, which you do, so if you had this opportunity to tell the world something about your country that you think maybe is a misconception, or what life is really like for you, because as of right now, I have never been to Africa or Slovenia. So I only know what I've seen on television, what I see in the news, that sort of thing. So if you guys could think of one thing you'd like to share with the world about life that you know coming from your country, what would that be?
I mean, I don't want to go first because I ended the previous discussion, but okay. The first thing, and that's maybe a little bit America-centric, but it would definitely be, we're not all like Melania Trump. We're different people. I feel like she's become the representative across the world because she got the most public attention. But yeah, living in Slovenia is, it really brings into focus how important it is that you have society that focuses on equality, that has access for everybody to everything. We're far from perfect, but I feel like we've kept some of the systemic systemic rules that were put in place and laws that enable certain benefits that I feel the world can learn from. So that is why I'm happy to be from where I am, right? And that is something that I wish the world knew more of, right? Because I feel like everybody instinctively connects us to, I don't know, Yugoslavia or Melania, those two things, right? Previous socialism, or maybe something in the South, right? It's partially that as well, right? That's partially, I think, one of the reasons why we have the system that we have today, but I feel like it is so much more. So that's something I would like to tell to the world.
Well, since we're talking about Slovenia, I'm just going to go next. I definitely agree with you, Nika, because some aspects of living in Slovenia are just aspects that make, I feel for a better society. So that's things like free healthcare, free education, even tertiary education, so colleges. Everything is very cheap for European standards. You know, it's really not expensive at all. Besides that, we have been called as the Switzerland of the Balkans. So even if you do think of Yugoslavia, you know, we were actually like the most northern part of Yugoslavia, and we border, our northern neighbor is Austria, our western neighbor is Italy. And we have really gotten lots of the systems we have in place from those two countries. But at the same time, we have kept the simplicity of life that we got from, you know, being Slavs and coming from the Balkans. So in general, what you just really should know if you ever come to Slovenia is that people are very nice. In general, people are just extremely nice, and they won't care about, you know, the differences in meaning. They'll just want to show you how beautiful our country is. We have mountains, we have lakes, we have the seaside, all 45 kilometers of our coastline, and so on. But we have a lot of really just beautiful sights to see, beautiful nature as well as beautiful people, and I feel like that's something not a lot of people think about when they think about Slovenia. But we also have great food and great drinks. So don't forget about that when you come to Slovenia.
Wow, that's very, very articulate and very nice explanation of Slovenia. I feel like the way you've explained it is like that could form a manifesto of a presidential candidate one time if you want to be the president of Slovenia, because of the enthusiasm of that country. I'd love to visit there one day because of how people are nice there. Thank you. well, about Kenya, from my perspective as a photographer, there are some very beautiful lakes, the landscape, the people, the roads, because my perspective of photography is basically everything, and the people are, of course, welcoming. As you said, globally people are welcoming, but again, people have different varying and intents of how they welcome you. Others will be like, they will welcome you, but in a small degree, not like, hey, welcome to our house. No, they take it slow. Others will be like, welcome, and then they want to know you bit by bit. Again, it's not really, I'll say this because again, the about the about how people say about Kenya and how people view it as how corruption is really hidden in different state departments. But one very good thing is that aside from how people see the corruption being in Kenya, it's also it's a global challenge. We all have to agree that really affects many governments. But one good thing that really makes people fight that monster, quote unquote, corruption is how people are really hardworking. Because when people continue to work hard, it means that they'll have a just means that will transform to a just pay, and it will make the generations that will come after us to smile and say, if they worked hard, we can also work hard, so that we can also travel to the ends of the world, like Slovenia, like United Kingdom, and also have fun in as much as working hard is good. Again, it's not all working hard 24/7. It's also you work, and also there's a time for having fun, there's a time for collaboration. But Kenya is a good country. Visit and enjoy the beautiful sceneries, and of course, the coast, Mombasa.
One of the first things that came to mind for me, a misconception about America, is, nationalism is very big here. So a lot of people are really proud of the United States, which is great. But sometimes it is easy to get in a bubble and stay in that bubble and not think outside that bubble. So that sometimes I feel like there's a stereotype that Americans can be prideful, almost, and just thinking that their country is the best in everything, which I'm not arguing for or against that. I'm just saying I think there is that misconception. So I know, like, I guess that's my biggest thing is, like, I've always heard that people outside of the U.S. view the U.S. as people who don't think outside their bubble, and are not in tune with the world. And with journalism, you kind of have to be. So that's a major misconception for me, because I am fascinated with what's happening in the world. Obviously, that's why I'm in this. That's why I'm in this industry. But I think that was a big thing for me is we're not like that.
Okay, so for me, I can say that, okay, like Vic said, is a photographer, but to me, I want to be a news anchor, so I'm more into the current news. I can say that current misconception about Kenya is a lot. Starting with the UK red list, like actually our country appeared in the UK red list, so we can't go to UK. And then I don't know what about the US, but actually we also stopped receiving donations from the USA because they claim that corruption in Kenya is too high, so they can't give us the ARVs, the antiretroviral drugs. And I don't say Kenya is a good country. Yeah, corruption is everywhere, and they are making us suffer more. Starting with their antiretroviral drugs, around 1.5 million of people in my country are living with HIV and AIDS, and they don't have, they can't actually access the drugs right now. A few only can access it. So when the USAID stop sending us the drugs, that means that we lose 1.5 million of the population. And then according to, next is the UK red list. So we appeared on the red list because they say that the pandemic is, Kenya is receiving the third wave of the pandemic, but actually not many people are dying as they think. Actually, where I'm staying, I've never had somebody die of coronavirus, but we are dying at a rate of, I think, 10 per day. That is so usual because other countries people are dying than Kenya. But here is us, we are facing a red list. So basically people think that there's a lot of corruption in Kenya, but it's not the case. We're just like other countries.
I think for me, in a lot of ways, this is going to be kind of similar to what Brady said, is that we're not all careless. I feel like Americans maybe oftentimes get the rap that like the only thing that matters to us is like money or fame or like things like that that are kind of like in the media a lot, and a lot of the bigger name people get the rap that like all Americans care about are money or fame or like what we have. And that, I don't think that's necessarily true. And I think for the vast majority of people, that's not actually true. And so just the idea that Americans are careless outside of like money or fame or things like that, I think realistically, like we are people that are a lot more driven for things that are outside of that and care a lot more about things outside of that. I think specifically as a journalist, I care a lot about truth and I care a lot about justice and I care a lot about equality. And that is something that I talk about a lot, I write about a lot. And it's something that is very like ingrained to who I am as equality, especially as like a woman in athletics. Like that is huge to me because I am in a male dominated industry and things like that, and so just the idea that like I think Americans, like we have a drive and we have things that drive us that is a lot bigger than just like the money that we can get or the fame that we have.
Yeah, Angeline?
Yeah, so the electricity is back now. We're thankful. And the most misconception about my country is basically on poverty and ignorance. I believe such words are more subjective. Like everybody's got their own way of seeing things. Well, for the case of my country, our late president, he really tried a lot, to keep things in track. And I believe people can survive on meals, shelter, clothing. So that makes the country. What I'm trying to say is I would change on the point of very like us being considered very poor and ignorant in a sense that there are justifications on any actions occurring in our country.
If I may add, Angeline is from Tanzania.
So Angeline, I'm glad that we got to see your face and that your camera started working. It's nice to be able to see see you. So we are right at an hour from when our broadcast started. Now, luckily, we're not on television. We don't have to end right at the exact moment of one. But I wanted to see if there was anything that any of you wanted to add, any kind of final thoughts as we wrap up today. And you can either go one at a time, or I can call on you, or you can shake your head like, nope, I don't have anything to say. But if you have those final thoughts about the discussion today, about anything in general, go ahead and share them before we wrap up.
I maybe want to just share one point, since it is quite relevant at the moment. Based off of that, research that I mentioned, that how badly students in Slovenia are doing at their mental health. There was a Facebook group made by students for students, and the principal idea of the group is to kind of share ideas and kind of put in line the objectives that we have on how to change the current situation, meaning that we can't be at faculties at all. So we're all having online studies, and we really want to change that because it has negatively influenced everything basically. And so they're going to try to put forth an initiative to take the legislation that was passed on account of the epidemic to court and see how what they can change with that, so that we could go back to to studying live as quickly as possible. So I feel like that was a very nice initiative by the students, and there's around 4,000 of us in the group already, and and counting. So I just wanted to point that out and maybe say that I feel that what comes in handy in such situations where you're really trying to put forth such an initiative is an attitude that I feel is also very useful in journalism, and that is having critical thought and having that developed very well, and then also being able to use your writing or your whatever, your articles to kind of present this issue to a wider public. And this is what we are trying to do right now. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, to add on that, I think that when facing the pandemic, a lot of social groups have been left behind. First, the elderly, then everybody who had financial issues. And I think that students in Slovenia and all around the world basically are one of those social groups that are being left behind, right? Specifically in Slovenia, for example, we're left behind on account of economy. Companies are still working, but our faculty is closed. So priorities are being reestablished. And I don't think that at this point we can count on people in the government realizing that we are the future and we are important. But I do think that we always have each other, and that connecting amongst ourselves on the national level and on the international level is then the answer, because the future is coming and we are growing up whether they want it or not. So
my final thoughts are that, first of all, I'm very appreciative of this conversation, whereby at least when you communicate, you're able to have a feel of the global environment and how things are going, and also so that people do not just have to view things from a local cocoon. It's very nice when we have an open mind and a global perspective on how things are right now, on how things are shaping currently, and how things will shape in the future, from a local perspective to a global perspective. I'd love to put 3 points across. Number one, journalism, as we know right now, will move from the breaking news that we know that really is happening when something big happens, to the life-changing stories and how people are transforming from a new normal to an overcoming way of life. How stories will move right now. Stories will move from just things that are happening on the ground, or things that are happening daily as we see them on television, to news that will be streamed and will be shared across by journalists across. And also journalists will try and move from just the newsroom as it is being stationed as a building, to try and change lives, even to change lives of people from local perspective to a global perspective. Number two, I think people will start to work globally. People will start to appreciate how global connections are very important, and people will also start to appreciate how working from home, that you can take advantage of internet, you can take advantage of technology, you can take advantage of knowing people who are miles and miles away from you, yet you can be able to exchange programs that can benefit you. Lastly, I believe that the best way to be able to collaborate with each other is trying to understand what is that thing which is very, very good or very nice concerning another country that we can be able to take advantage of in a good way and be able to promote that country's culture, that country's system of education, that country's exchange programs, for example, in a way that if we're doing a research and we're able to find that this thought or this idea that is here is good, we can be able to portray it to a different country so that we're able to have a global connection and able to convince people to be able to see things or visualize things, not just from a point of having to access it and using it, but sustaining it for longer periods of time to different generations in a way that campus students and even individuals who are working and also not who are working can be able to have a conversation whereby even in the online space, we can be able to have things being possible, not just impossible because of the pandemic. Because I believe just as COVID happened, it does not mean that now things should stop. We should be able to visualize things from a point of what next, what next, what next? How can we make things possible? How can we make things better and bigger for the global community?
I really liked the question about misconceptions. I thought that was a really great question. And it got me thinking, like when we're doing a story, you always need to have an official source, like let's say there's a house fire. I'm just making this up. You want to talk to like a firefighter or someone involved, but you also want to talk to the person who owned that house, the person who was affected in that story. And that's something that's important to remember. And I think, that's kind of what we did today with that misconception question was, it's very easy to turn on the TV and see the political leader of a country speaking on a topic, but not hear from the people that they're representing in that country. So it's really cool to hear from each of you as individuals within your country, not as the country as a whole, about your experience. And that was a big takeaway for me. And I think, we all know that applies to journalism as well, and how we cover stories and speaking with communities that are affected. And that's exactly what we did today. So I thought that was really interesting. So really, really neat.
Any more final thoughts from you guys? Well, go ahead.
Maybe, Robin, I should just mention that I'm very excited about this forum today. I'm really happy about these conversations. I just wanted to mention that in the mentorship and blog post that we do for Africa, we've put together a working relationship with the Voice of America, whereby we are having our mentees and including mentors as well, where they can actually do stories, and those stories be aired on Voice of America TV or radio. As you know, Voice of America does most of their stuff is international in nature. I would be very, very excited to see some kind of collaboration here. Let's say Brad and Hannah and Nika, all of them do some kind of story collaboratively that gets aired out there. I think that would be a really interesting thing. So, I mean, if that's something that would be of interest, maybe you guys can come up with some ideas on how to get that done. Let's collaborate, discuss with Robin and talk to VOA and see if, we can get that out there.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Robin for organizing this. Thank you so much. It was really a great experience, and it wouldn't have happened without somebody to host this. So anybody who's watching YouTube, give a big thumbs up to Robin.
Thank you very much. But you guys get all the credit because Nika, you said something and I wrote it down because I liked it so much. You said the future is coming and we're growing up, like it or not. Well, if the future is coming and you guys are the future, then I have no doubts about the future of journalism, the future of social justice in your areas, and that sort of thing. I know that you'll lead the charge. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you were on YouTube or if you were among the panelists, we plan to do more of these because it's really important to us to be able to connect and to share the stories of our new friends and new collaborators in Africa and Slovenia, and hopefully even more places one day. So if you have questions about anything, you can email me at rbtaylor@troy.edu, or I've posted our social media handles in the chat on the YouTube live stream. So let's connect, let's keep talking, whether or not we're Zooming or FaceTiming, because Americans do like to FaceTime, you're right. Whether we're Zooming or talking or emailing, the important thing to do is to keep communicating. So we're gonna say bye to everyone on YouTube. Thanks for logging on and hanging out with us.